I'll never forget the sound of her laughter. Not a pleasant laugh, but a short, cold snicker. The high stakes weren't the house or the money. They were my reputation and my decade of loyal marriage, all discounted to zero. My wife, Elara, filed for divorce and walked in with a lawyer who charged $1,000 an hour. When she saw me sitting at the petitioner's table representing myself, she thought she had won before the first word was spoken. That single cruel laugh, covering her mouth with a manicured hand, was her hubris, the absolute confidence that I was poor, powerless, and about to be financially destroyed. That laughter turned my pain into resolve. They thought I was just a naive engineer who'd be humiliated into submission. But they forgot one thing. I was a forensic accountant whose life was spent finding hidden truths. I hadn't hired a lawyer because I had already found the biggest financial secret of her life and her new lovers. The moment the judge asked if I was ready, I didn't argue about custody or property. I simply handed the clerk a dense folder stamped Exhibit A, Criminal Misappropriation. I remember the look on Elara's face when her expensive attorney flipped the page and saw the cold, hard numbers of their fraud. Her trembling hands froze, clutching the table's edge. The look in her eyes wasn't fear of losing the divorce. It was the terror of realizing she was losing her freedom. You're probably wondering how it got this bad. Let me take you back to the day the money started to talk. The courtroom air was silent, heavy, waiting. Elara was across the well, beautiful and ruthless, watching me with disdain. She had the smug confidence of someone about to crush an ant. "Mr. Vance, I see you are proceeding pro se. Are you prepared?" the judge stated. I rose, my heart rate flat, my voice steady. "Yes, Your Honor." And I moved to introduce Exhibit A, evidence that impacts the entire marital estate. The bailiff took the thick white folder from my hand. I watched Elara smirk, waiting for it to dissolve. It did. Instantly. When her attorney, Mr. Carter, quickly scanned the first page, a printout of a wire transfer to a shell corporation, he slammed his hand onto the document, a sharp, uncontrolled smack on the table. He looked at Elara, eyes wide, trying to silently ask, "What did you do?" Elara's face was the anchor point, a mask of flawless makeup cracking wide open, her jaw going slack with absolute, sudden terror. The fear wasn't about divorce anymore. It was about jail. You're probably wondering how I went from being laughed at to holding all the cards. My name is Vance. I'm a man who deals in clarity and order. My work as a forensic accountant for a regional firm was about finding the simple truth hidden behind complex layers of finance. My life with Elara was meant to be just as clear. We met in college. We were the dependable pair, the ones who always paid their student loans and talked about saving for the future. We weren't flashy, but we were secure. We built our life slowly, a comfortable 2-story home, the kind with a small yard that was easy to manage, and a shared vision of retiring early. The primary physical setting of our world before the fire was the kitchen island in our home. It was where we shared coffee every morning and paid the bills every month. A symbol of that shared life was a small wooden clock Elara bought me on our 10th anniversary, engraved with the motto, "Time and Trust." It sat on my nightstand. I often repeated a professional maxim, a piece of foreshadowing I now regret. The small mistakes are usually honest ones. The hidden ones are always deliberate. I believe that only applied to my clients, not to my marriage. I remember a Sunday morning, roughly a year and a half before the divorce. Elara was sitting at the kitchen island, sunlight warming her hair. She was looking at a magazine spread of a mansion. She looked up at me and smiled, but it was a little strained. That was the last true emotional beat of warmth I would ever see. "I know you're careful, Vance, and I love you for it. But sometimes I feel like we're waiting for life to start. Everyone else is taking leaps." I told her, "Leaps are fine, Elara, but you still have to check where you're going to land." I should have known then that she was already planning her jump. The foundation I thought was rock solid was already starting to crumble beneath my feet. The leaks started small. She began traveling more for her job in high-end real estate development, claiming she was meeting clients in nearby cities. She became secretive about her phone. She started wearing clothes I had never seen, and suddenly my careful budgeting was stifling and small-minded. The true injustice, the wound that justified everything that followed, happened one Tuesday afternoon. I had taken the day off to surprise her with tickets to a trip we'd always talked about. I walked into the house, but it was quiet. Too quiet. I noticed the wooden clock was missing from my nightstand. I walked to the kitchen and found Elara sitting at the island waiting for me. She wasn't smiling. She was wearing a thick gold watch, a heavy, expensive piece that screamed status. "I'm leaving, Vance," she said, her voice dry and rehearsed. She handed me a stack of papers. "These are the divorce papers. I've retained Carter and Associates. I want the house, all the retirement funds, and I'm claiming severe emotional distress. You can keep your car and your debt." I sank into the chair opposite her. Disbelief hit first, paralyzing me. "Elara, why? Why now? What changed?" She rolled her eyes, impatient with my genuine pain. "You changed, Vance. You're stagnant. I met someone who understands ambition and can actually deliver the life I deserve." "So you've been cheating on me," I stated flatly, my voice barely a whisper. She didn't even flinch. She crossed her arms, pushing the gold watch into prominence. "Call it what you want. Carter says that with your income and my distress claim, it's open and shut. You can't afford to fight me. You should just sign. Save us both the headache." The sheer calculation of it was dizzying. She wasn't just leaving, she was attempting a calculated financial mugging using my own decency against me. Her confidence, her visible celebration of my impending ruin, was anchored entirely in that gold watch and her expensive lawyer. My inner voice shifted from disbelief to cold, hard resolve. I stared not at her face, but at the gold watch, that gaudy symbol of her new life. I stood up, walked to the laundry room, and found a half-empty box of laundry detergent. I stared at it for a moment, then calmly put the lid back on. No shattering of glass, no yelling, just a cold, unblinking stare. That was the night I stopped trusting and started planning. My first step was silence. I accepted the papers, told Elara I wouldn't fight her yet, and moved into a cheap extended-stay motel near my office. She thought I was reeling, defeated. She never saw the single flash drive that became my entire world. The next 6 months were a montage of sleepless nights, my eyes red and focused, filling the screen. I was working my job by day, and at night I was hunting. My firm gave me access to deep-level financial analysis software. I used the secure office network after everyone left. I started by tracing the watch. It wasn't a gift. It was paid for by a wire transfer from a Delaware LLC that was only a few months old. That LLC was owned by Jude Caldwell, Elara's new lover, a mid-tier real estate developer. I focused on Elara's computer. She'd foolishly kept old financial files on a desktop folder marked Personal. My training kicked in. I knew how to clone a drive in minutes. I found the truth hidden in her work correspondence with Jude. I discovered she wasn't just having an affair. She was acting as his financial assistant. Specifically, I found a pattern. Jude's construction company would pay his shell company, the Delaware LLC, an inflated amount for consulting and material acquisition. The money would then flow to Elara in smaller controlled disbursements, not as salary, but as brokerage fees. It wasn't adultery that was the fuel. It was money laundering and asset concealment from Jude's remounting business debts. Elara was actively complicit, using her knowledge of the market to facilitate the scheme. She wasn't a kept woman. She was a criminal accomplice. One night while I was reviewing an encrypted file that detailed the total scope of the illicit money flow, nearly 7 figures, I got an anonymous email. The subject line was chilling. Stop digging. It contained a screenshot of my work login history at 3:15 a.m. from 2 nights before. Someone at Jude's firm, likely his CFO, was monitoring their own security breach, and they were on to me. My cover was blown. They knew I was a threat. My initial plan was to use the affair and the financial disparity to win a better divorce settlement. That was...
The courtroom went dead silent. Carter snatched the file, his expression morphing into utter confusion. He scanned the first few pages of bank records and Shell Corporation details, his eyes wide. Carter began to stammer, his polished facade collapsing. "Objection, Your Honor! This is a relevant smear. It's an attempt to poison the well with baseless criminal accusations, to derail a civil case." "Is it a police report, Mr. Vance?" the judge asked me, leaning forward with genuine interest. "No, Your Honor. It is an internal audit summary I conducted in my professional capacity. The full detailed forensic report detailing the transfer of nearly $700,000 from Mr. Caldwell's business to the petitioner's private accounts was delivered to the Financial Crimes Unit of the District Attorney's Office 1 hour ago." The sound was the sharp intake of breath from Elara. Her face, the anchor from the cold open, went utterly white. Elara realized the truth. I hadn't prepared a defense. I had prepared a prosecution. Her high-priced lawyer couldn't argue with the DA's office. She lurched forward, terror overriding her composure. "Vance, stop this! This is insane! Carter, tell him he can't do this!" Carter, the man she paid a fortune to save, focused entirely on his own license. He moved for an immediate recess, turning his back on Elara to address the judge. He was abandoning her to the consequences of her own greed. I looked at Elara, whose gold watch now looked pathetic and heavy on her wrist. The clerk was already making a call. I spoke my last words directly to the court. "Your Honor, my share of the marital assets is no longer the point. I believe these exhibits show that all assets acquired by the petitioner in the last year are likely the proceeds of criminal activity. I simply request the court order a forensic freeze and audit of the entire estate to determine which assets are legally ours and which belong to the state. The truth, Your Honor, always finds a way out." The divorce was immediately stayed. The DA's office moved in with the speed and efficiency that only federal-level financial crimes investigations can manage. Elara and Jude were both formally charged. She lost the house, her job, and her entire savings, which were seized as potential criminal proceeds. Jude, facing serious jail time, immediately tried to pin everything on Elara, just as I knew he would. The gold watch, the symbolic object of her betrayal, was listed as evidence. I walked out of the courthouse alone, the air surprisingly crisp. The revenge wasn't loud or chaotic. It was calm, organized, and utterly devastating, built on the rules of accounting she thought I was too small to leverage. I went back to the old house for the last time. I found the empty spot on the nightstand where the wooden clock had been. It was a tangible measure of what she sacrificed for greed. I picked up a simple chipped ceramic mug, the one she always hated, and put it in a box. I didn't take the memory. I took the lesson. I realized that my revenge wasn't about getting rich or getting even. It was about defining the moral boundary. She laughed because she thought I was poor. I won because she was criminal. My pain didn't go away, but it shrank, replaced by the quiet satisfaction of justice served. Revenge doesn't fix pain. It measures it. I sold the house, I started a new firm, and I finally got an attorney, a good one this time, specializing in asset protection. I walked away clean, carrying only the lesson. Justice always finds its way. I'm Zach, and this was another true tale of revenge. What would you have done? Would you have just signed the capers? Or would you have built the trap? Comment below. I read every one.